I will be walking you through how to set up sheets in Revit, create views, and then apply those views to sheets. So this video will be posted with a speed range on it, so meaning you can change the speed of how I'm talking and the video is pacing simply by going to the bottom right, clicking on the gear, and then you can adjust a speed that works for you. So I have a basic floor plan up here. You'll notice I don't have my windows or my doors, and that's okay. I kept it simple. Right now I'm only focusing on getting those floor plan views in, elevations, and then a few wall and section details. And then after we do that, we'll start applying them to sheets. But first and foremost, let's create some views. So right here we have our floor plan, and what I did is I called this main level floor plan. All right, and in architecture, wherever you work, you'll have different standards at different companies. And typically, a common thread throughout every firm is capital letters. That's very much a standard in the industry, is that is what we do with our construction documents. And then also, too, you'll notice later in the module, you'll be creating what's called an FFP, which is a finished floor plan. And that finished floor plan will showcase things like tile, carpet, wood, etc. That'll all be done differently depending on where you work. Keep in mind, everything will be done differently, completely differently everywhere you work, but having a sheet dedicated to finishes of floor plan is pretty common. Not everywhere, but it's pretty common. So I'm going to show you how we simply duplicate this floor plan here, okay? So right click that, and I'll do duplicate view, duplicate with detailing. And once I have that, you'll see it says main level floor plan copy. And then I am just going to delete the copy portion, okay? And then I am going to name it whatever is required on that module, okay? If my names vary a little bit, that's totally okay, but go ahead and copy whatever is on those modules. So I'm going to call it main level floor plan. Sorry for the glitches here. My computer is just lagging a tiny bit. Main level finish floor plan. Sorry about that. Okay, so main level finish floor plan. And if you don't have a main level floor plan here listed already, what you can do is you can go up to view, plan view, floor plan, and then you'll see architectural plan is right. But if you don't see your level that you want to make a plan, just simply uncheck do not duplicate, and then click main level and click OK. And you can see here it created another new level for me. So that's something you can do if that first option I showed you didn't work. All right, so that is creating just a very basic floor plan. And then I want to show you how to change the scale of that floor plan. So on the modules, it'll show you the expected scale. Right here on our floor plan, let's double click onto our main level floor plan here. I just simply change that scale, and I go up here and I am going to change that to 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. And then let's do that again on our main level finish floor plan. I come up here and I do 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. Okay, so it's very easy, easy way to do that. And then you'll also notice is that we need to create a floor plan, an enlarged floor plan of the restroom area. That's incredibly common in architecture, and the reason we create an enlarged floor plan of this restroom is because there's so many goodies in here. There's toilets, counters, tubs, shower curtains, plumbing, tile, grab bars, towel bars, doors, cabinets, all of that require so much detail packed in a really tiny space that it's incredibly helpful to have a plan that's a little bit larger. That helps the contractor see things more clearly. So just an example on how to make that enlarged plan is I will go up to callout, rectangle, and I will click and drag that rectangle here. Okay, and boop, just click and that's done. And then right here, I can double click on this and it will tell me what it's called. Okay, and then I'll also bold it here. And so once I have that, I'm going to click right here and I'm going to call this enlarged bathroom plan. Okay. All right, so that's my enlarged bathroom plan. And you can see here, the required scale in our module is they want 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. So I'm just going to change that up here. Okay, and perfect. That's how we do that. And I'm just going to exit out of the things I don't necessarily need at the moment, just to keep things clutter-free in Revit. So that's our floor plans. Those are really basic. That's really all there is to it. I'm going to show you later in the video how we end up applying those to our sheets. But just remember, typically we have a floor plan that's already pre-baked into Revit that's here. If not, keep in mind you can go up to View and you can do Plan View, Floor Plan. Okay, that's if you don't have it. Or you can always right click if you need to duplicate your plan. And if you are duplicating, always duplicate with detail. That gets your dimensions and whatever you may have in there, transferring to the next drawing if you need them. If not, you can simply just duplicate. That is totally up to you. So now that we have our floor plan covered and our large floor plans covered, let's venture into what's called an exterior elevation. So that exterior elevation is going to be a flat 2D view of the exterior. And you'll notice, like, hey, Aaron, I already have these. That is true. It is listed here if you double click on that, okay? However, I'm going to show you how to make your own in case you don't have that. So to do that, we'll go to elevation. And then the second step, super important, we want to make sure that says building elevation. Okay? So I'm going to bring that close right there. And then I will click once on the black portion. And then I'm going to grab these little blue dots. And I will drag them in because I don't necessarily need my elevation to show all of that dead space that nothing's operating in. And then also too, my preference is to always push this down right here, and that's the depth of our view, because I'd like to see what's in the background here, okay? And so now that I have that, I'm going to click on this view right here, okay? And then I'm going to change the scale if needed. I feel like a 1/4 inch is okay. And I believe that's what we have on our modules as well, so I'm going to leave that. And then in addition, what is super important is I'm going to change the name on this. So I'm scrolling down and I'm calling this North Elevation, okay? And this is your north elevation because it's the north side of the building, okay? Don't call it the south elevation because you're looking south. It's the north elevation because it is the north side of the building, so just something to keep in mind. And we have that there, and then I'm just going to double click on that to see what it looks like. Our building is still a work in progress, so don't worry, we're just getting the hang of working on those views. So that is an exterior elevation, and then I want to show you an interior elevation. We don't have much on our walls, and that's totally okay. But what I'll do here is I will go to elevation, and then super important, interior elevation. And then I will keep in mind the arrow moves, right? So I'm going to do, let's do one of the bathroom walls. And then I click my little arrow, and yep, that looks good. The depth is a little far, but it doesn't matter. And then I am just going to click once on that again, and I want to make sure that's at a 1/4 inch. Beautiful. And I am going to rename this, okay? I'm going to call this Bathroom East. Okay, and if I double click in here, I have that. Beautiful. That's looking great. Okay, I'm just going to exit out of that. I don't really need that window open right now, but that is my interior elevation. So those are super simple, a nice way to get an elevation of an interior to show cabinetry, sinks, etc. And then I want to show you next a wall section. So wall sections are a great way to show the assembly of a wall. And to do that, I start with View, Section, and then let's do it right here. And I create a little baby section cut. Doesn't really matter which direction it's pointing, but just get the whole wall in there. And then what I'll do here is I'll click once, and I'll go here, and I will do 1/2 inch equals a foot, okay? Beautiful. And I'm going to call this wall section. Great. And architects like to use this to show really how their building is looking all the way from the foundation to the tippy top of the roof. And this is super helpful. It is helpful for the contractor, I will say that, but it's particularly helpful because it shows the architect what details are needed within a building, and that can inform the architect on what would be best to include in this set. So once I have that, I will just leave it parked in here. It'll be somewhere underneath sections. So if we look at wall section, beautiful, and I double click there, there it is. So all of our drawings are going to live under what's called the drawing tab or views. So right here, and they're all under here. So you'll have to do some digging to find it. It can be quite the goat rodeo, so be patient with yourself. Revit is not the most beautiful program, and when it comes to organizing, it's not the best. So just be patient with yourself when you're exploring those areas. Now that we have our wall section done, I want to show you how to do a detail callout. So detail callouts, there's a few ways we could do this. We have section details, we have plan details, we have axon details. There's so many details in the world of architecture, and I don't want to overwhelm you. So we are going to stick with a callout detail. And callout details are really beautiful when we are changing materials on a corner. Here we can tell that we have some stone, and then we're likely going to some sort of wood siding. Think of like shiplap or some horizontal siding. And that will give me the ability, if I double click, or excuse me, just click once on this, I can change that to 1.5 inches equals a foot. And that is a really good scale for tiny details. And then once I have that, I will double click in here, and it will show me, if I zoom in, the intersection of those two walls. And then what I can do here is I can start to add additional information through annotations, explaining and drawing how that brick wraps the corner. So for all intents and purposes for this project, I encourage you to just pick 2 corners in the project, particularly where materials change. So you could do something right there, and then maybe something at that fireplace. Or you could do this corner here as well. It looks like from the set that these 2 walls may actually have different materials on the outside. So go ahead and look. If I remember right, this wall may actually be stone on the exterior. I am okay if you want to leave that without the stone. It's totally fine. Those little tweaks in the project aren't a big deal. And that gives us a good learning moment to learn more about details. So that is a mini little lesson on calling out those details. And I want to show you next sheets and how we apply those views, okay? So we may have sheets here already set up, and that is totally fine and great, and you are welcome to use them. However, let's make our own, just trying something out. So I want you to click and see the size of the sheet, okay? 30 by 42. That's pretty large. We don't need it that large for this tiny of a house. However, there's nothing wrong with whatever sheet size you want to use, because we can always combine drawings on one. Just for all intents and purposes, let's use that E1. And if you want to create a new sheet, you can go up to View, and then underneath View, click the star on the white rectangle called Sheet. And then we can do E1 horizontal. And then if you're doing a cover, just click Sheet, E1 cover right there, okay? And that'll be your cover sheet. And more on that later in our module as you read through your assignment. So right here, I have my sheet, and I can change the number of the sheet. So I could do AE to a 1 or whatever it may be. You'll have to look at the module. But just for the sake here, I'm just going to call this AE101. Okay, and then here, go ahead and add a client name, add the name of the project, and then here is the name of the sheet. So here, let's call this main floor plan. And one thing that's really helpful within the world of architecture is that your drawing names should always match the name of your sheet. This is a standard within our industry, and it keeps things moving smoothly through the set. And so once I have that here, I'll just simply drag and drop. Oops, it looks like that is already on a sheet. That is totally fine. What I can do is I will just duplicate the view and create a new one. So Revit gets a little crabby when you try to create multiple or have one view on multiple sheets. It doesn't really like that too much. So I'm just going to drop that here, and you'll notice it doesn't really fit well. That I have this ton of extra space out here. And so what I'll do here is that I will go click once on the drawing, and I go into my properties here, and I click crop region visible. Okay, and so what I'll do now is I will just click once on my drawing, and I want to make sure that scope box says none, all right? And then once I do that, I'll double click on this border here, and I will just drag that in, and that'll cut out the noise or the excess that's around my drawing and just crop it nicely. And then once I have that, click once on your drawing. Oops, sorry, just click once on your title block down here, your little drawing title. And then to get this tail fixed, click once on your drawing, and just bring that in just a little bit. We're not too focused on neatness here. We'll clarify that moving forward, but that is an example of getting a floor plan on your sheet. And so I want to show you an example of, let's throw an elevation on here. Very similar process. And so I will go down to elevations, and I will drag and drop that on here. Keep in mind it will have to go on its own sheet, but here I want to zoom in and just cut away some of the excess. Okay, so if you remember, we just wanted to make sure that we are double clicking here, and then once that pops up, we'll get our blue little bubbles, and we can go ahead and we can just kind of tighten that up a little bit. Okay, and then I can just grab this title right here, then click once on the drawing to access the tail, and then I can move that on my sheet. Okay, and then if I don't want this ugly box on the perimeter, I can just go to my properties panel and unclick the crop region button there. So that it's really the same process for the details I showed you, and same with the wall section, but that's what we'll be doing in this module. If you need to repeat, please go ahead and rewind this. That's why it's on tape. If you need anything, go ahead and shoot me a message, and thank you so much.